Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. We do Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educators spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, taking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. And rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out.
Tala Falava and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. It's been a long time coming, folks, and I'm absolutely stoked that today I finally get to share space with this guest. I mean, who needs tea when we have Koko Samoa, right? Our guest is a well-known Pacifica blogger who uses her platform to educate, to empower, to engage, to challenge, and inform folks on various hot Pacifica topics. And my favorite part is she highlights and uplifts inspirational Pacifica women who are out there smashing it in their respective parts of the world. Joining us from Tennessee, it is my honor to welcome to the show Aynsley Broom, the owner, the writer, the creator of Sipping Koko. Woohoo! Welcome, sis.
Hello. Oh my God, what an intro.
Tala for sis, my lord. So for how are you? How are you?
Doing good. This past week has been pretty awesome. So I'm like very excited to be here and talk. I know we've been like going back and forth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, finally we get to talk. So I'm so good.
Yeah, like I said, it's an honor to have you here. Be waiting for this. And I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate you taking the time out
I'm
to
happy to
do
do
this.
it. Yeah.
How are things in your part of the world, or where you're staying out there in Tennessee? How are things going out there?
Things are pretty good. There's a lot of stuff happening here in Tennessee that's, obviously it's Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So this month has been very busy. We've had so many events. I'm part of the API Middle Tennessee organization here. And so being a part of that as an API person, it's actually wonderful here in Tennessee, at least in Middle Tennessee, because the the allyship that is there is fantastic. Something that you don't normally see a whole lot broadly, like here in our little area, they actually do recognize and see us as PIs. They always are very conscious of wanting to represent Pacific Islanders, which is something that is not always happening in a lot of events across the country. So totally loving that. And then of course, just being in Tennessee, like there's a lot of stuff happening. That's just as women, we're kind of losing some of our rights, and then our LGBTQIA plus community is like really going through it, and so there's just a lot of stuff happening. But overall, still finding joy in different things, and overall, I'm doing all right. Bridgerton also just came out with a new series like 3 weeks ago, so I'm also excited about that. So yeah, it's just been fantastic.
Cool. Thank you for reminding me, bringing up API Heritage Month. We will, we'll get into that. And it's great to hear that there's been a lot of activities going on in your community, because as you say, or from what I see online or here, we're not necessarily getting that representation or being heard in other parts of the US. So I can't wait to get into that later.
We can get into it.
So man, okay, where can we begin? Shout out your people, give us a bit of an intro. I mean, I feel like I gave the standard intro for the guests, but what's the Aynsley Sipping Koko introduction that you like to give people?
So I normally talk about how this all Sipping Koko came about. So we'll start from my parents. I mean, I feel like that's a good start. So my mom is from she is from Samoa. She is from the island of Savaii, village of Wailoa in Palali. I apologize to those of y'all if my accent is like really butchering the names, but that's where we're from. That's where my mom's from. And when she was in her 20s, she moved to New Zealand where she met my dad. And my dad grew up in New Zealand. His family, we can trace all of our lineage back to Scotland. But his father and grandfather lived in South Africa, moved to New Zealand where they met my grandma, or where my grandfather met my grandmother. And then they moved to New York where my dad was born. But my grandma didn't really like New York. And so came back to New Zealand where he was raised. And so then that's where my parents met. And my dad had gone to university in America. And so that's how after they got married, they came to America so that he could, finish some of his schooling. And then my sister and I were born in Kansas. It's a very, probably not one of the more well-known states, but there's a few islanders in the Kansas area, especially around Kansas City, where I'll get to that later. But then they moved to Arkansas where I grew up. And growing up, there was not many islanders. I'm pretty sure my family was probably the only islander family in our little town. I grew up in what's known as a sundown town. So essentially in the States, especially in the South, if you are a sundown town, and really for the Black community, you need to get out of that town ASAP, because after the sun goes down, it's not going to be good. So I grew up in a very conservative town, but my parents had this bigger world view, right? Coming from different parts of the world and then to this tiny town in Arkansas. So I'd always had dreams of going to the big city and that kind of thing. I knew I was Samoan. I knew I was different. Because in the first grade, I remember I had a friend remind me that a boy told me that he wouldn't date me. I know, first grade, but you know what I mean, little kids, because I was different skin color, and I'm light skin, as you can see. I am so. Yeah, I didn't really realize that. And there was just other things throughout time. But when I hit my mid-20s, I was in a workplace where we had a very diverse group of people, and I had two amazing friends who always encouraged me to learn more about my heritage. And it's because of those two friends that I sometimes I give credit to them for helping Sipping Koko come about, because I was I have so much that I want to talk about, but being in Arkansas, I don't have the resources. And if I go to Google, there's a paywall, or there's an academic wall, or there's a geography wall. I just don't have access to the stories that, say, people in New Zealand have access, to the University of Auckland has all those archives, or even in Utah or California, where there's big communities where you can, get it first word of mouth, heritage and all that. So what I was there has to be some way. So when I eventually moved to Nashville, and these two friends and I had always talked about starting a podcast or starting a blog, starting something. Well, I had 3 weeks on my hands before I started my job here in Nashville, that I was percolating these ideas. And it wasn't until September of 2019 that I was I figured it out. And I was I think I'm going to start a blog where I can start connecting with different islanders. I can start figuring out resources. There was other stuff that was also happening and my own experiences. And then when I did some Google research, I was I'm not the only one that feels this way. And I was but the only way I can connect is if I create something and just write about it. And if I'm wrong, great, I'm learning, and if I'm right, wonderful. And so Sipping Koko just came about from talking with those friends. And I was there's the tea, but we have Koko Samoa. And I was well, why don't we do that, And so that's kind of where it all started. And from there, I've just met some incredible people. I feel I've also been able to in a way help my mom and some of people in her generation feel more comfortable here in America to speak about their heritage and not feel they have to assimilate anymore, and that they're recognizing things in their lives that happened, and they're oh, I didn't have to accept that. That was racism towards me, And I thought I just had to like, deal with it. And so my mom, I've seen her like, she'll be at home, and used to, she would just watch regular videos, and now it's all like Samoan videos. She's keeping up with the news. She was very involved in the election. And so it's just wonderful to see like that, all of that happening. And yeah, it's just been a journey. But one that I'm super thankful for. And I'm just like very, grateful for what Sipping Koko has been able to do, and just meeting great people and learning, because I've learned so much. If it wasn't for that blog, I wouldn't have learned as much as I do now.
Because you speak of mum's generation, but I was wondering for you, how was it for you growing up, like coming through school? What I mean is, we talk about seeing ourselves in books or hearing stories that resonate with us. But when you're living in communities where you may not necessarily have access to such resources or even see people that look like you, tell us then what it was like for you coming through school. Who were you kind of looking to as role models, or what kind of books were you into that kind of made you feel like, here's a character that has some of my characteristics and some of my strengths,
Yeah. So I think so. I'm Advocacy. So I feel like something that I've grappled with, especially the past a few years, is like, when you're growing up, I don't know. For me, I knew I was different, but I didn't know why, if that makes sense. And then, as I got older and learned more about my heritage and how colonization affected my Samoan side, I kind of hated my white side. Just for like a bit, until I talked to one of my other Afakasi friends who was like, you are white, and that's okay. That's part of your ancestry. That's part of who you are. And you're able to make change because of it. And so I think for me growing up, when I was always like looking towards people that inspired me, there wasn't really any islanders that I can think of. It wasn't until I started learning my history that I like found them. But growing up, it was always like Jane Austen. Jane Austen is one of the people that I loved, because she was a woman writer, and during her time she was able to write. There was, I do remember, like, do you know the Royal Diaries? Like there's like American Diaries books, and
Yes,
then
yes,
there's
yes.
so I remember being a kid, and I loved the Elizabeth I book, and I remember seeing Queen Liluakalani, and I didn't know, like, I don't know why this memory sticks with me, but I remember seeing that and not really connecting with it in the beginning. There was a connection there, but it wasn't like, oh, that's like, that's a Bustafica queen. Like it didn't click when I was a kid. And so like, that's because like I feel like it's because my mom had to assimilate, that like growing up, I didn't really recognize those like Pacifica people that were going to be like my heroes, like Haunani K. Trask, the women of the Mal movement. Like those are my heroes now that I talk about. But back then it was like Jane Austen. Who else? I think I talk about Pacifica heroes now more than my childhood memories are kind of.
What about like women of color, like black, in America, like were you kind of drawn towards black writers or anything like that, or not so much?
Not so much. I grew up in a very white town. Like that's the thing. Like I grew up in such a predominantly white town, and a lot of like even my sister and I have talked about this recently. Because we went to a private Christian school and we're in church so much, there was a lot of stuff that we didn't really experience that the rest of the world did. Like, oh, what is that? The one where that there's an author. Oh, why is her name escaping me? Her Judy Blume. I don't know.
Yeah.
Never read any of her books. Like I don't.
Really?
Yeah, because of because of the subject matter, they were probably banned from my area of the world. Like there's like so much stuff that like I didn't experience as a young kid that many people would have. you know. So when I tell people I grew up white, I'm just like, I grew up white, like I don't, you know, like I did, like like British television is what I watched. Princess movies. I will say, like, Pocahontas was like one of my favorite Disney princesses. Now I know that's not a great like PC Disney film, but to me, I think when I was a kid, I was like, it's a brown
Right.
heroine, you know, like I loved her and I loved how strong she was and compassionate she was. And so like to me, Pocahontas was my idol as a kid. Like I had a tree I talked to, like as a
Mm.
kid. Like I didn't have imaginary friends. There was a tree at the end of my road that I would go talk to, that was Grandmother Willow. And so I feel like even though I didn't have women of color that were very like present in my life growing up, I had my mom. I feel as if like the ancestors in a way had moments in my life that was going to be bringing me down this journey. So down this
Mm.
journey where I would be championing women of color, where I would like I want to talk to like want to uplift Black women voices because they are always suppressed here in the States, especially. And so I think like in my life I had like these moments that were leading me down that path.
Mm. So interesting, eh?
Yeah, it's really strange because people I've been asked before, you know, like who were your idols growing up, and I'm like, well, some of them were white. Like, I mean, and not that they were
Mm.
bad. It was just like, you know, people who you know, I have sipping Koko, so people expect that I'm gonna have like Haunani K. Trask or Queen Lulu
Mm.
Akalani or Princess Ruth or the Mao movement, and I'm just like Jane Austen,
Yeah,
you
but I
know,
mean,
Elizabeth
I think
Bennet.
I think it's important that I mean, as you say, that's part of your journey. Like
Yeah,
it's to acknowledge that and and I think for many of us, like even growing up in New Zealand, like now we have many Pacifica, right, in Moana
God, yeah.
creatives and writers putting our stories there, telling our narratives, but
Mhm.
we never had those books coming through, like we grew up in New Zealand, where I grew up in Auckland, very multicultural, but it didn't necessarily mean that we had books with characters that looked like us. So
Yeah,
I think in acknowledging and saying, yo, that's part of my journey. And, now I've come such a long way. And like you say, it's just your worldview and your mindset, growth mindset, all of that has really, and the blog has really just helped you evolve as a person, as a thinker, and yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I
nothing
mean,
wrong with it at all.
yeah, it's just, you know, I still remember, I think one of my favorite lines from a movie was from Lord of the Rings, where the ring wraith was like, no man can kill me, and she takes off her helmet and she goes, I am no man, and goes, "Ah." Like, you know, just moments like that where, you know, you're like, yeah. So like the because I was always that girl that was like, because like I said, I went to a private Christian school, and so we would have chapel or like worship, you know, and they were like, well, the guys have to do that, and I said, why? I'd be like, why?
Mm,
And they're like, well, the men have to. I'm like, why? I was like, I can do it.
mm.
Anything they can do, I can do it as well,
You you
if
can
not
do
better.
better, probably. Yes.
Better. I was like,
So I want to ask you about the term advocacy.
yeah.
As a there's always debate about this. You can look at it as a term of empowerment, or on the other hand, other people like it's a deficit, like like
Mhm.
has negative connotations to it. um your own personal experience in terms of your journey, do you have any thoughts on the term efficacy?
I I remember when I first heard the word advocacy, I think I was a kid.
Mm,
And I think part of it too was it being I felt weird because like this is where colorism comes into play too in our community.
mm,
Um I remember my own dad being like, well, you know that like you're like well liked in the Samoan, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because like I was like a middle school kid, you know. I'm like, I'm dealing with acne. I have
mm.
poofy hair in this white town. I don't, you know. I'm over here being like, I don't fit in at all. I don't know what you're thinking, you know? And so to me, I know that like the literal term is half caste. And part of me is like, I've said it so much and like I don't really have an issue with it. Just because, you know, I know things evolve and change. So like, you know, should I be ever have kids? And like generations later, they're like, you don't need to be saying advocacy. That's not, you know, in the world we live in now. I won't say it, but I identify as advocacy. It's easier to just say that than to be like, I'm half. Like to me, saying I'm half means feels less than me saying advocacy. And maybe that's just because for me, I feel like in my own language, in our language, it feels more accepting. Just because like when I say I'm half, I think I feel like the feels I feel when some of my cousins will be like, you're plastic, you know? I feel like plastic is way worse than advocacy in my opinion. Just because, yeah.
I don't. When people call themselves plastic, it really annoys me. I'm like, don't do that to yourself. I've had people say that, oh, you know, like here, because, you know, living in Japan, and someone will be like, oh, you must, you know, my salmon's not good. Like, you know, my niece said it, you know, she said it to me, and I said, don't. And she's like, oh, but I'm a plastic. And I'm like, no, you're not. Don't, like, I find that term so, I'm like, do not don't ever refer to yourself as a plastic Samoan. Like, I think there's always an opportunity to learn, to grow, to you know, to find those missing elements of your identity. Like, do you know, like, and saying you're plastic is like, well, where does that even come from? That kind of thinking? Oh, it's a very kind of like a Western thinking where you're like, you got to do it this way, or you got to look like this, you got to speak, you know, it's that real negative kind of thinking. I hate it.
Yeah, no, same. I remember when I told my mom, I was like, yeah, like one of the cousins called me plastic, and she goes, what the heck does that mean? And she was like, you're not plastic. And I was like, thank you. And so, you know, it's just a term that I think, and that was like part of the reason why I started sipping Koko, was because if I get this platform and I create this platform, you know, a lot of people look down on plastic Samoans or plastic islanders. And so I'm like, watch me. Like that's like it really just made me go, okay, you think so? Well, let's go. Like, watch me. Like I'll show you what a plastic Samoan can do, you know? And so like to me, yeah, I hate the term. And so like that's why one of my very first blogs I ever wrote was why the plastic term is terrible, and the L of plastic, I used the middle finger. Because I said, if you find that offensive, that's how we feel when you call us plastic.
You know, let's talk a bit more about your blog, since, you know, let's talk a bit more about Sipping Koko blog while we are talking about this. You know, you feature a lot of really cool, inspirational folks, women, you know, hashtag empowered Pacifica woman, hashtag empower, no jokes, hashtag Pacifica inspiration, just kidding. But, you know, I love that. And I was wondering, where do you find these cool people from? Yeah, where do you find them?
Honestly, so it really just started the first year of the blog. I did the Empowered Pacifica series, Empowered Pacifica Women series, and I literally just asked people. I said, if you want to be featured, and you have something that you want to share, let's do it. Or if you know somebody, send them in. And then from there, it ended up me just like researching people, seeing people who were in the media or who were, you know, doing like some work in a university or in research, that kind of thing. And so featuring their quotes, which then led me to like who they follow and who they talk to. And so it's kind of like this web of islanders that I was able to meet. And then some of them I I followed or they followed me, and we would connect, and it just kind of started off organically that way. And
Mm.
so that's kind of, it was part research and then part just like social media doing its thing.
Very cool. Are you looking to grow that or do something similar, or perhaps another series in that? Maybe uh, a different area of the community, or
Yeah, so my hope, so I've been kind of, I don't know if lazy or slacking, probably the word. Been a little slacking on sipping cocoa because I'm trying to figure out the direction with it and the
Mm,
scent, and also because I've been involved very much in the Bridgerton fandom, and kind of networking there. Uh, and also because as I've done this, so like Sipping Cocoa has its own page, right? And then I have my personal page.
mm,
And it's coming to this point where I'm like wanting to them to just be the same thing. Because what I did when I first started Sipping Cocoa, I was like, oh, I don't want to bother the people that like know me from back home. Like
mm,
I just don't want to, like, with all this culture stuff, like they probably get annoyed. So I started it on a separate page. But then when TikTok rolled around, I shared everything. I didn't care what it was. I was like, movies, Pacifica film, my just everyday life, whatever. And so like with TikTok, seeing that, like I could just be me, right? And like with Sipping Cocoa, I want it to be me, and I want it to be the blog. And so, because we are one and the same. And I
mm,
even talked to an actress from Bridgerton, and I said, she does advocacy on her page as well. And I said, how do you balance it? And she goes, I used to think that it was a balancing act, that I had to like compartmentalize everything. And she goes, at the end of the day, it's all one thing. Like it all is, it's a unified, kind of like just speak. Like when I want to talk about my life, I can. And also just living as a Pacific Islander is advocacy work. Just
mm,
being you and just being proud of who you are, and like being unapologetic is advocacy work, is something that I've learned through these years of having that blog. Is like I don't have to separate myself to please certain groups of people. Advocacy work is being me in all of the spaces. And so I do want to make that series. I want to continue that series because
mm,
my goal is for all these women or all these people that I have to also connect with each other, and for us to
mm,
create something like it. That was the whole purpose of it, was that, not only am I able to connect with them, but they're able to connect with anybody else that they see on the page, because we're all doing different works, right? Like we're
mm.
all doing everything we can to advocate for our community, and that takes all of us working together. And so I want to hopefully, create this. I would love to create, like, we had a summit one time, and it was such a cool thing. It was with four other ladies, and it was called Pacifica CEO. Um, but it was so cool to see that come together, and I would love to have a summit where all islanders come together and we just talk whatever it is. But yeah, no, I would love for there to be like, just like not a comic, like a convention where like we have Pacific Islander filmmakers, Pacific Islander marketers, like where we can all come together and network, and it's like this convention that happens every year. That's the dream.
That's the dream. Hard. Um, Man, that's cool. That's cool. I hear you. I hear you. I wanted to ask you about writing because
Yeah.
you're a blogger, and you write these pieces. Your blog feed you've got these hot topics and
Hmm.
your take on so many different things. And I mean, how, like, what I'm trying to say is like, how do you, like, are you a good writer? I mean, what I mean is like, how not everyone can write a blog is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I
I
don't think so. So how do you, yeah, are you just naturally good at writing? Should you be
well,
writing books
depending
instead?
depending on who you ask. I have always loved to write.
Okay.
And also depending on who you ask, they say my grammar's not great, but I'm like, well, the message is there. You got the message, right?
Okay.
um, but yeah, no, I've always loved to write. I started with diaries because I was just a kid who, even I had a great childhood, but I had a lot of emotions. And so like my dad was like, just write it out. That's the best thing you could do. And so like I journaled a lot. And I just love to write. I have a lot of thoughts, and so like the easiest way to get them out and to like feel like I've gotten my thoughts out on a page was the best way to like organize them. And so that's kind of how I started it. Part of it, half of it is wanting to put something out there. Like I think for me it was like I'm an Aquarius, so I always want to have a legacy. Like I think like one of my fears, I don't know if this is an Aquarius thing, I feel like it is. One of my fears is like leaving this world without making an impact or making a difference. And so writing is the way I see that, because as Pacific Islanders, we don't have a lot of written down history from our people. We have it from other people and what they think our history is, but we don't have anything. We don't have a lot of writings that's accessible to everybody, right? And so like part of it was me wanting to be like, if I can find a way to get access to this piece of information, I want it to be available for our people wherever you are, because it was so frustrating to be in Arkansas and Tennessee and being like, I'm not in New Zealand. I can't go to the library to go access this, and or I can't pay $100 every time I want to read something that's like geo-locked or whatever. And so yeah, writing has always been that. And like I think part of it is just me just wanting to get my thoughts out there, and just to be like, if I'm passionate about it, it's just going to be written out. Now it's kind of turned into video creation, to where I talk, and that sometimes gets me in trouble. That's why I wrote down a lot of stuff, because I was able to write and then reread and be like, maybe I should say it this way. And so whereas like now my videos, I'm like, oh, I probably could have said that a bit nicer, but whatever, it's out there.
Oh, you're so funny.
Yeah, but now I'm like, okay, we're just gonna roll with it. It is what it is. But yeah, no, I have always loved writing, and so blogging was the first start of things. I had an old blog called According to Aynsley, and so that's kind of where I'm actually circling back to According to Aynsley, and it might just be a branch off of Sipping Koko. But yeah, I don't know how I started writing. My auntie on my dad's side was a journalist, so I don't know if it's just like kind of like a hereditary, like a gift that was just passed down through the generations. My grandma was a journalist, so I'd always just wanted to be. I always wanted to be a journalist. I always wanted to write. But when I was going off to go to college, Mom was like, "What if this?" Because it was during like we were coming off of like the Iraq War. And I think we're still in that. I'm really not sure. Don't ask me that. I've kind of stepped away from that part of politics. But yeah, she was like, what if they send you to somewhere dangerous? What if they do this? What if they do that? I'm like, okay, I'll just go to business school then. But it's kind of funny that what I wanted to do is now what I'm doing. And my mom is kind of like, I think she's starting to see that. And she's like, huh, maybe I should have just thought, she knew what she wanted to do. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm I enjoy writing. I've never really, I don't know if I'm good, but I appreciate people that read and say that I am. So,
what are some tips or strategies? 2 or 3 tips or strategies that you have for anyone who's wanting to start their own blog?
Yeah. So one of the first things I always say, just do it. Honestly, the hardest step I feel like in anything that you want to do is just literally going out and doing it, right? Like Sipping Koko could have just been a dream in my head if I didn't sit down and actually just do it. Like my first post was literally called, I think it was, I don't know if it was the logo I used to have or if it was Let's Talk. but it was just me putting it out there. And then I think the second thing I would say is consistency. Like, find ways to stay consistent. I've had Sipping Koko for 4 years now, because it's ever since I've been here in Nashville. And it is hard to stay consistent. I say the first year, if you're doing a blog, give yourself little challenges. One of my challenges was for Women's History Month was to post, I think it was once a day, once every day, or twice a day. I can't remember. But it was basically post every day or twice a day. So I was going to post, I think it was twice a day. Yeah, it was, I wanted to post a quote from a Pacifica woman leader. And then I was posting a blog post. So it was like a social media post and then a blog post for 30 days.
Wow.
And even though that drove me, there was days I was at my job, which partly got me in trouble sometimes, but I would, at my lunch break. At my lunch break, I was like, okay, Pacifica women, oh my gosh, page 5 of Google, page 12 of Google, just trying to find anything. And so, give yourselves those challenges and complete them, because by the end of the month, you will have 60 pieces of content out there, and it's just a daily thing. Just take it one day at a time. That's probably my third one. One day at a time. Don't try to hit 7 million, Make your goals be like, is this for me? Like, figure out who, because this is another tip, figure out who it is for. And remember that. Because for me, it's like, I have 5,000 followers now, but in the beginning, I just wanted to talk to people, And so remember what your core why, for me, it was like connection and talking, figuring things out. And so just stay consistent. And I guess my other tip, I don't know how many tips these are. I'm so sorry.
You're all good. No, hey, this is good. There will be people out there wondering and asking and thinking about this. So
I think the other one is be authentic. Don't try to be anybody else. I think, what I run into as a content creator right now is people trying to copy who I am, to the point where they're doing like how I talk with my hands, which is that's just how I do things, And so if you are authentically you, there's only going to be copycats, but they're not going to really hit the message or be able to do what you do if you are completely yourself. So stay true to who you are. And because I know how cliche this is to say, but like, there's no one that can do you, right?
Yeah.
And at that, don't be an asshole, but be you.
I totally agree with you. Like, I think that's, in this age of social media, like that's definitely one thing you see, as you're scrolling the feeds and whatnot. Even on TikTok, there's so many people trying to be like someone else or trying to churn out content like someone else. And I totally agree. Like, find your niche, do what makes you happy. It's not about pleasing people are gonna connect if they get it, and they're gonna follow you regardless.
Something I'm learning right now is comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm.
So don't compare yourselves. It's easier said than done, because I struggle with it daily. But when I'm in my head, have a motto in your head that you think of over and over, because the more you think about it, the more you will become, right? Manifestation. And so when you remind yourself, comparison is the thief of joy, it really is. So be you, don't compare yourself, and just go do it. Like, literally, go do it. What do you have to lose, As long as you're not an asshole, don't be a Steven Set2, okay? Don't be. Yeah, I'm calling him out. I don't care.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. What I really like, you had that full disclosure thing, and I'm sure it's been on your page since you started. But what I really like about it, it's just like, I love that you're just like, if I make a mistake or misunderstand things, please speak with kindness. You know, we're all on
Yeah.
a journey. I'm willing to learn if you are, and that's the Koko. Now, sorry, I did copy paste and read that out word
Oh
by
yeah.
word, actually, folks. But the reason why is because I think that is super important. Again, we're living in a day and age where yeah, people are gonna judge you no matter what. Like you can't make everyone happy. Like people, someone's always gonna, you know, side bus. I like that quote about the joy, you know, that one, you know,
Comparisons
people
are a
just
thief of joy.
compare.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because you know there's always going to be someone out there that doesn't like what you're doing, or doesn't like the way you speak, or doesn't like your mannerisms. And
Mhm.
you know, at the end of the day, like as content creators, we're all learning. I like that you're just like, you know, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing. I'm putting myself out there, but
Yeah.
I do understand that I'm learning as well. So, you know, kindness is it's very easy to do, but people struggle with that because people will rather come at you with just their negative crap. And it's like, relax. Go
Yeah. Well,
away. You
and a
don't have
lot.
to watch, you know?
Yeah, and I know some people probably think I get kind of harsh, and I know that like some of my first pieces of content were a little harsh, you know.
Mm,
I get that, but at the same time, is it harsh or is it truth? And
mm,
then there's also like, are you being an asshole or is it truth? You know, because you know when I talk about how some Pacifica men will, like one of my
mm,
biggest topics I used to talk about a lot, I don't talk about as much anymore, but like it was how Pacifica men will put white women on a pedestal and just trash Pacifica women. Still happens today,
yeah.
and I can only talk in circles so much about it.
Mm,
Um, but that was like harsh but truthful. But then when you take people like Steve to, that's just being an asshole. And there's no like like there was there truth in what he was saying about like how, you know, Em Dongi's story, you know, captured the hearts of the people 1,000%. Like anybody that watches a singing show knows that half of the votes, not half, I would say partial, like a small percentage of the reason why people vote for you is because of your story. But nobody, he won because of who he is and because he has talent. And that's the truth. And the way he watered that down was just, I'm sorry to go on this topic, but I have not talked about it at all except with my family and
it's
friends.
okay.
So
It's
here we
okay.
are. I'm letting
It's
it
okay,
out.
sis. It's okay. It's okay. I don't engage with this content. I mean, I'm on Twitter. I actually didn't even know you were on Twitter. That's why I just followed you today. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that you might be on Twitter. And then I was like, oh, she's on Twitter. Okay. But
I don't
sorry,
get on there as much anymore. It is a dumpster fire, but
I say all that to say, yeah, I don't engage with his content. The only way I see it is because people that we follow each other post it. That's when I see it, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, or on TikTok, someone has reposted. Part of me is like, surely this is for clout,
oh, it's always
surely.
for clout. It is
But then,
1,000% for clout.
yeah, and then another part of me is like, I always think, man, do his siblings see this, and why didn't they tell him? Do the people in your close circle, I mean, are they encouraging this? But you know, it's like because we live in this day and age where anyone can create content.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, you know, I shouldn't judge what someone else is doing, but those are the things that I think about is when it
Right.
appears, and I'm just like, close circle, where are you? Like, are you not like giving some kind of counsel or some advice, or perhaps I don't know, like I don't
Well,
I
I
don't
think
really get like why
I
that content excites people.
I
Or
think
yeah.
what I've noticed in at least in the Pacifica circles and like content creation, you have a group of people, you have a group of us who recognize what social media is and what it
Mm,
can be used for and how it can create when I say I always say positive change, because when you say it can create change and I'm like, well, what
mm,
kind of change? Like
mm,
let's talk about what kind of change. And so I see those people and I hear them and I'm grateful for them. Then you see the entertainers, the Johnny Tuivasa, those people. And then you have the people that are just, they're like, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. Yet they're the ones that are stirring the pot and saying stuff, and they just are creating hot air and upsetting the community, and they're not really doing anything. And they're like, well, social media's fake. And I'm like, social media, if it was gone, yeah, it to some extent it's fake, but to some extent it creates real world consequences.
Yeah.
And what kind of consequences are you are you putting out there? Are you going to do positive change, or are you going to send out negativity?
Right.
And everything I've seen from him has always been very negative.
And I also feel like I get you when you say that there's different groups of like content creators, and I've always said it on here, like with the different guests that come on, like part of this podcast, the reason why I do this podcast is because I want people to hear the stories that aren't being championed.
Mhm.
And now that you're on here, you've joined, the Reeds of Rosa family as well, and we don't hear these stories. And I'm not saying, I'm just saying that I want people to hear the stories of the guests that have come on the show, who are out there smashing it, who have had the ups and downs in their life journeys, who are here to speak their truth, who are, impacting their communities, who are being intentional with the music and the content they're putting out there, who are, like, I want more of our communities to hear these stories, because as you've said, there are definitely groups, and some of these groups of people, they get way more exposure, and it's not necessarily it's it can be harmful in a way. And I guess, part of that is the conversation around, a lot of these male Pacifica male podcasts. I mean, that falls into that, like, like you can. Now, I say that to say there are some male podcasts who are doing amazing things
Oh,
and really uplifting
1,000%.
communities, but we don't hear those
We
stories,
don't hear them that much.
And so,
No,
yeah, so like part of
reality.
this, and then having you on here as well to speak your truth and share, parts of your journey that maybe others do not know about. Like, I want people to hear and champion these stories and say, I have taken a different journey, but there's something that I heard that resonated with me, and that's going to help me be better. Like, this is what it's about, right? But it's just
Yeah.
so hard when you have, people, other content creators who are out there just kind of like playing around, messing about. But then I think about the audiences that they're reaching, especially with our younger youth and Pacifica
Yeah.
youth, and it's just crazy. Like, we can't win, It's
Well,
like,
I think it takes time. And also realizing that every community almost deals with that.
mm,
But I think I think we're on the up and up personally. I
mm,
will say, like, around 2020, 2021, I think part of me was probably just angry half the time.
mm.
Half the time.
We'll blame COVID.
Yeah, well, yeah. Um, just because we were dealing, especially here in the States, we were dealing with, um, not just COVID, but also like
Mm,
Black Lives Matter, which is so important.
mm,
And then our own community, and we had all of these like different. It seems like very. I didn't. If there was women podcasters out there doing this, please send them my way, and we'll talk about it. But for the majority of the time, I was seeing a bunch of male Pacifica podcasters who would just put our women down.
mm,
So it's frustrating, but I think more and more are calling it out, and more are seeing like the error of those podcasters. And hopefully, there will come a day where us women don't have to fight to be heard or seen in our
mm,
community, who we don't have to basically, like, just basically fight just to be us. You know, like we get made fun of for being too masculine, for our thighs, for how we look, how we speak. And I'm like, we already deal with that in this Eurocentric world.
Mm.
Like, why can't we just have our men like support us? You don't have to
Mm.
dance. You don't have to like whatever. We just want your support. We don't want you to go on this podcast or to make that video, whatever, making fun of us.
Mm.
And so, because then that just sends a message, and I've always said this, that just sends a message to the rest of the world that what they say about us is okay, the negative stuff, when it's not. But I'm, you know, thankfully there's been some incredible women like yourself and like a lot of the other women I've come in contact where we are able to come together and create such positive change and just like create lights and beacons in our community to where I feel like it is outshining those idiotic like content people. I think we're on the up and up, you know? And I even have a friend, I'm gonna shout him out. Many of you might know him. And some of his stuff is a little silly, but I do appreciate what he tries, like what he does every once in a while. His name's Giovanni Apul. I'm gonna mess up his last name. Apulu, Apulu.
Yeah.
So Giovanni, and he does like funny, like it's fun. I mean, it's kind of thirst traps, but they're also, I find them like kind of haha at the same time. But you know, he has a sister who's very talented. She does Siva. She competed in the Miss Samoa, I think, in Auckland. And so like he's always very supportive of his sister and very much, you know, like we need to be respectful of our Islander queens, and I appreciate him for doing that. You know, I've seen a shift in his content creation, and I'm like, there is a shift and a change coming.
Let's go revisit API Heritage Month.
Oh, yeah.
You know, share a little bit about how it's been going for you. I know you were raving on about it at the beginning. I was getting excited. I was like, okay, hold up. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what was happening in your community and or perhaps how you were networking with others on that.
So API Middle Tennessee, which is the organization I'm a part of here, we are 3 or 4 years old as an organization. They'll probably have a better idea of the date. But yeah, we each May, this is our second May that we as an organization have been able to like support or put on events here in Tennessee, anywhere from like supporting API musicians, API writers. So yeah, no, it's just I'm super grateful for the organization here in Tennessee. They have always been very what's the word I've been using? Mindful. They've been always been mindful of ensuring that Pacific Islanders are seen. And not just Polynesians, but Micronesians and Melanesians. I don't know if we have any. I think there's some Melanesian like people here, but it's a small it's a small percentage, just like Polynesian and Micronesians. But they're always very mindful of trying to get Pacific Islanders recognized. But when you go outside of my fun little bubble, it's it's like frustrating. I'm in a group chat with 2 amazing Pacifica women, and this past week, all we've done really is just been like, I am, excuse my language, but I am fucking exhausted. We're like, just so tired. Because you can only, and I don't know if it's just because we've been more, there's more awareness around it or my eyes are open to it, but the amount of erasure that happens of Pacific Islanders during this month is just ridiculous. At this point, I would just much rather have our own month. You know, like I love the allyship that's there, but you can only go year after year basically being told your voice, your people don't matter, and not just want to scream at the top of your lungs. And so I am just very much exhausted, to say the least. Because, you know, like when you're one of few too, you know, like, and you're like always having to answer these questions, especially here in the States. I feel like for those of us who we're disconnected and now we're connecting, and then we're like the only one, and we get questions or we're needed at this event, and we're just like, I don't know if I can be everything for everybody.
Mm.
And so on top of like not being heard and then trying to be everything for everyone, by the end of the month you're just like, can I just have a margarita, please?
Mm.
Or some Coco Samoa. And is there a Coco Samoa cocktail? Has anybody done that?
I don't know. Actually, we should check Living Coco's page. I think I
Yeah.
saw her post something the other day. I'm just catching up on social media now, but I think she might have posted something about a tequila Coco Samos. I'll see. Look for the post and send it to you after this.
Listen. Or it's gonna be sipping cocoa late at night is what's gonna happen one of these days.
Man, I mean, yeah. So it sounds like it's been pretty exhausting, and for me, I mean, obviously, I don't live in the US, but for me as a reader, what I find frustrating about this month is that there are many, pages and accounts that put out lists. Well, this, they put
Oh, the
out lists of
list. Oh my god.
books, and then it's just kind of like, I'm sure these people are paid mega money by companies to put out these lists or produce these lists, but then you're just going through like, but where's the PI?
Where are we?
Like
Where
I
are we?
literally last year unfollowed so many of these big publishing accounts because I was just like, I know you did not just post a list of 50 books that hashtagged AAPI with
50.
no PI content or in there, like up to what is that?
Well,
What is that?
I haven't posted this on my Sipping Cocoa just yet
Mm.
because funny enough, one of the collaborators followed me, and I was like, I don't know if you're trying to be an ally or just shut me up. But
Oh.
anyways, Gold House and Google had a collaboration where how like Google has like their celebrate these voices kind of things.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. So they had that for AAPI month and won. Google, the largest search engine in the world, not just like America. Google could only have one person that was PI. Taika Waititi. Not even The Rock made it. Not
Oh
even
my
Jason
gosh.
Momoa. Like and not even Drew Afawelu. Drew Afawelu didn't even make TikTok's list of content creators, of API content creators to follow.
That is so crazy to me.
Like these lists and these things, you have Pacific Islanders there. Like
Yeah.
we are literally there, and yet where are we? So
yeah, it's
yeah. What is
well,
it?
I
Well,
mean,
you're in Japan. Like, what
yeah.
is that? Like, do they celebrate this month, or is it mainly an American thing?
Yeah, I think it's an American thing. The only reason, like, I've been kind of posting about it for the past 3 years is because Bookstagram, like my account is actually a Bookstagram account, and through there I connected with other Bookstagrammers, and that's how I learned about AAPI month.
Yeah,
But even prior to that, I was really just all I knew about was Black History Month.
yeah.
That's I didn't really, and then that's when I discovered, through other readers, Pacifica readers, that there was this AAPI month, only to find out that actually it's just where's the PI?
Yeah.
But I
Like,
know
where
that
are we?
yeah, exactly. But shout out to Little Pacifica readers. There's a group of 3 of them that put together an extensive list. They put together this Google Drive with just authors and books and books and books, resources, Pacifica folks, by Oceania folks. They've done the hard work prior to May. I think they started beginning of the year. Maybe they've been compiling it and they were hinting at it around April and then dropped. And I had a quick look at it. It looks pretty good. So yeah, how do you look after yourself though? So you've said, here you are, super exhausted. I'm not surprised that you're super busy and wearing many hats, but how do you take care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally? Like
Yeah. So, Well, I deal with anxiety. I just like kind of figured that out. So like I have started taking anxiety medicine. So that's one way that, if you are dealing with mental issues, mental health, um, it's okay to go to the doctor and say, I need help. Like March rolled around and I called my mom crying and I said, I don't feel like myself. I don't know what's going on. I can't deal with this I can't deal with this anymore. And so I went to the doctor and, it does help a whole lot. My sister and I just started doing row class. So we row, and I will say that there are times where I'm like, I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm with the ancestors and we're rowing through the Pacific. And I'm like, I know I'm just on a machine doing this, but you know what? I'm going to pretend so I can get through this 45-minute class. And it really helped. It really helped when Face Off. There was one class where Face Off was the song. And so like there was like, because it's divided up in basically about 4 rap sections. And when it came to the rock, and he was like, Black Salmon in my veins, my banging machines. I was like, yes! I was like, where are we going? So I was like, yeah. So, exercise has been very helpful to my mental health. And then just being with friends. There are times where like, I think like in the social media age, especially like if you're a content creator or do a blog, you can literally just spend hours on your phone. I know I do. I mean, I'll probably finish this podcast with you, and then I'll turn around, lay on my bed, and I'll figure out ways to do more content. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is put the phone away, or just put the phone somewhere where it's there, but you don't have to look at it. I talked to my friend last week. I had my sister and I went to a Renaissance fair. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and I barely looked at my phone because I didn't have any signal, so there was really no point to look at it. And I enjoyed being with my friends, being outside, go in nature, literally touch some grass, truly. But just taking time to notice the small things in life that bring you joy. We were outside in that Ren fair, and when we were walking back to our car, it was near 6 o'clock-ish or something. So like the sun was sort of setting. It was like that golden hour. And I was like, I don't do this enough anymore. Like used to, growing up, you go outside, you hang out, whatever. I was like, I don't do this enough where like I'm just out in nature, noticing a sunset, which I know people are like, they happen every day. And I'm like, sure, they happen every day, but they're gorgeous. So leave me alone. And so, just taking the time to enjoy being in life and living life, even if you're having a crappy day, just figuring out, like, make a cup of tea if that's what brings you joy. Sometimes that's what all I need. I just want a hot cup of tea and listen to some music. And I've noticed that, like, sometimes just stepping away from your phone and realizing what is on that social media app, even though it brings you that, like, few seconds of serotonin, and you're able to, like, you're able to meet so many incredible people. Sometimes you have to put it down and, interact with the people in your life that's with you physically. That's my sister reminds me all the time to be present. And even though I get like annoyed with her sometimes, I am grateful that she gives me that reminder. Because I know if she hears this, she's going to be like, well, that's a bunch of bullshit, Aynsley. I'm the one that blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, Vanessa, I know. You're the one that's reminding me to be present. But yeah, I'm starting to like enjoy to like take my weekends more for me, where I don't have to do as much content, and I'm able to just be like, this is me time. This is me to like rejuvenate, because I've noticed if you do not take that time for yourself, do not take that time to replenish your energy, the stuff you create will only be subpar. But if you take that time to rejuvenate, sometimes if you're like, there's times where I take baths. So there's times you take baths and have a bath bomb, the best ideas will come to you. So definitely take some time.
Agree. I just came back from Samoa a few days ago. I'm still operating on island time, actually. So I went for 10 days, and like with the podcast, like prior to going, I had, because I'm really kind of like scheduled. Everything is scheduled, like down to a T. Because I
Yeah.
like during the week, I'm a teacher. I got to focus on that. Like gotta do my
Yeah.
job. So, but then there was the one episode that I was trying to like, that I knew I'd drop while I was away. I wanted to upload and everything. Prior to flying out, having problems with YouTube, couldn't even get that done. So I thought, okay, cool, no worries about it. Like the poster, everything is set. It's just the episode. It's all edited. I just need to upload it. Was at the airport, couldn't upload it there. Got to Samoa. Let me tell you, sis. Let me tell you what. Monday last week, everything was set. I was like, it's all scheduled, ready to upload. But this damn like snippet was done, everything. But this damn episode just would not upload to YouTube. And like that's the only thing I was trying to do on my phone. Like usually if I travel, I don't get a SIM or nothing. I'm just like, I just really go off the grid. But I was like, I gotta get there. Monday, like I kid you not, it was like uploading close 90%, then it would like not upload. Tuesday try. So Wednesday is when I drop, the promo stuff. Oh my God. I was like, okay, God, I got this. Drop the promo on Wednesday. Thursday morning, all day, like finally Wednesday night, I was just like, okay, let's try this again. Everyone's like, what's wrong with your phone? No one else in the house was having issues but me. They were like, it's a sign. It's a sign. And I was like, I bet it is. So I say all that to say is I absolutely agree with you. Like this, once I got that done, I was over it, and I've just had a break. I've come back, and I'm like, okay, now, this weekend, because these interviews had been planned for, a while. So I'm like, I'm good. We can do that. I'm back on schedule. And so, but I agree.
No, I get it.
You got to take a break.
You got to take that break. I mean, sometimes you feel like you're always competing with some people, and like, especially if you're close in like the industry with them. But at the end of the day, while we don't always have seats at the table for us, there's always opportunities out there. Something I've also been learning is having the mindset of abundance instead of a mindset of scarcity. Because when you have that mindset of abundance, you're not killing yourself to create what you love. You're enjoying it. So have a mindset. It's easier said than done. It's easier said than done.
What you're saying absolutely resonates with me, and I that's okay. Yes, because that's exactly what it is. And it's okay just to kind of be like, okay, let me just step back, have you time. Like you said, like get fresh ideas and do that. Like I totally. I feel you. I hear you, sis. But do you have a book recommendation or anything that you want to plug at this point? It may be something that's been recommended to you, or maybe a book from your childhood, something that kind of sticks out in your mind.
I have, something that I know is missing. So if anybody's, I might finally sit down and write my 3 books that I have an idea for. But because I think that what's missing in the Pacifica circle is romance novels and romance whatever. We don't have enough romance. We're like, for a people that have some of the most romantic songs and some of the smoothest people. I'm like, we have some smooth workers out there.
Yeah.
Where are the romantic movies? Where are the romantic books? So I'm gonna suggest some romance books, and they're not Pacifica, but they're my favorite. I'm looking. I have a bookshelf like right here, so I'm like, what I have on.
Do your thing, sis. Do your thing.
I obviously Bridgerton. If you have not read Bridgerton by Julia Quinn, read it. Okay, I have it. One of my favorites. It's not that one. It is. So there's this. So because I'm from Tennessee, actually, yeah, because I'm from Tennessee, y'all should read these. They're by Penny Reed. They're the Winston Brothers series. These are spicy, y'all. When I say romance, I mean romance. So They're a series called the Winston Brothers series by Penny Reed. And one of my favorites is called Truth or Beard.
Okay, got
It's
it.
a lot of fun. The Winston brothers are hilarious. I love them so much. I wish they were real in real life. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm single. On Thursday. So this is the number one in the Winston brothers. The one that comes before this is their sister, who is in a knitting club. And so that's part of the knitting series, Knitting in the City series book that kind of starts off the Winston. You don't have to read it to start this series. But my favorite one, which I don't have a physical copy of yet, is is Grim Bearded. So Beauty and the Mustache is kind of like the prequel to this series. Truth or Beard is like the first one. And then Grin and Bearded is my favorite because it is about I think it's the oldest Winston brother, and he dates has a relationship with a movie star that goes to their town, and she's this curvy Latina woman. And so since I'm curvy, it made me feel better and be like, oh, a hot bearded man could love me too. So that's why I love it. And she's like she's a comedic actress, like, and so I'm just like, she's like loves donuts and like jokes around with him and gives him, and so like that's why I love it again as well, because I love to laugh and everything like that. And then so between comedy, a hot dude, and donuts, you can't go wrong.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I found the books and I'm gonna look it up, see if it's on my Libby app after this.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, it's on Libby. Yeah, it's on Libby.
Okay, awesome recommendations. And what can we expect for what have you got planned? For the rest of this year, like anything from Sipping Koko, any collab work coming up, any writing of romance novels, wink wink, I don't know.
I've started, I'll tell y'all, I've told a lot of people I'm trying to manifest myself to just do it. Take my own advice and just sit down and do it. But I do have, I am hoping to start write a book series. It's loosely based on my life. So it's going to be called, I'm workshopping this title, but essentially the musician, the coach, and the best friend. And so, or the best friend, the musician, and the coach. I can't really, however, whatever order it's going to be in. And it's about 3 guys in my life who, at some point or another, I had a huge like crush on them, and we had just very close relationships. Only one of them ever ended up into like a situationship. And then the other 2 were just like, so the musician, they're not going to listen to this. So not that they're Balangi white men, Balangi men. And only one of them really ever follows anything I do. So
yeah,
I don't care if I say what I'm about to say about them.
You're funny.
So the musician, he's the one that I had a situationship with, and he's the one that he would be the one to like see this and be like, oh, she's talking about me. So yeah, I had a situationship with him. And then the best friend is someone that I was really close with from my senior year of high school until almost till I graduated college. And we're not close anymore because he got married and his wife doesn't really like me, whatever. Yeah, it's one of those things. And then like his mom invited me to his rehearsal dinner. He didn't invite me. His mom did. So it was a surprise when I showed up. That's gonna be part of the book.
I can't wait to read this, man.
Yeah, and then the best friend is a guy who we got really close really fast. Nothing ever happened, but I think we had a night where we both hung out. I'm gonna tell a story because I love telling the story. So we worked out together. We always like, I helped tutor him for his like master's degree. And then trade off would be he trained me for my 5Ks. So there was one night we had just finished training. And I was like, you want to go get some Buffalo Wild Wings? And he was like, oh yeah, sure. So we both left. I left to go take a shower, and then I came to his apartment to pick him up. And I was just like in jeans, a nice shirt, cardigan, and like boots. Not a big deal. And when I rolled in, he was wearing like basketball shorts and a hoodie. And I was like, you ready to go? And he was like, give me a second. And I was like, okay. So he goes back to his room and changes into like khaki pants, like a nice shirt, and wore like a baseball cap. And I'm like, why do you look nice? But okay. It's like when we drive to this restaurant, eat, have a great night. At some point, he starts singing to me while I'm driving us. And then, like, he talks about how his sister would probably really like me. And it was almost as if he was thinking out loud, like, could this be a thing? But he also had this girlfriend who he told me they were broken up, but it's a complicated situation. Anyways, but he anyways had this girlfriend since they were like 16. And so to him it was like, could I start something new even though this girl I've known since I was 6? Anyways, long story short, he and I were like very close, and then once he got married, we kind of just drifted apart, even though I have a text. I took screenshots because I knew one day I was going to write a book and I was going to read these screenshots.
I cannot wait to read this book.
And I have it where he says, we got into an argument one night, and he was like, do not ever question my loyalty. And I was like, what the hell? This is like 8 a.m. I'm like going to work. He's like, don't ever question my loyalty. And I'm like, dude, this degree I'm helping you with is for you. He goes, you know that when I make it, we're both going to make it, and I'm going to take care of you. And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, people say things that they don't always mean, and later down the road, it's going to mean something completely different. And he goes, you know, that's not me. You know, I'm loyal. And I'm like, look at us now.
Yeah.
It was right. And so I'm going to write a book.
Yeah, you better start. I hope you've already sent the draft off. Get moving. I hope you've already thought about the cover and everything. Hurry up.
I have. Well, here, look. So Shonda Rhimes, who I absolutely love, because she's the one that does Queen Charlotte and Bridgerton. But on my Spotify, hold up, I have a playlist, because she said she always listened to a playlist when she was writing different things. So I have started a playlist for the Music Man for that book. So I have.
Right, I'm gonna look it up after this, so I can get into that. So I can be like, I can't wait till this book comes out.
There's only one song on there right now, but I'm gonna be adding to it because when I do release the book, I'm gonna be like, this is what I listened to write this book, and then each book will have it, and so and they will be spicy.
You're so
that's
funny.
The part that's loosely based because none of it happened.
I'm saying it again. You heard it here first, folks. Well, actually, you didn't hear it here first, but let's just embrace that and be like, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Book is coming. It's gonna be spicy. We cannot wait.
Yeah. So, anyways.
I love that for you, sis. I love that. I am so here for this kind of stuff. Man, I feel like we could talk for hours. But I just want to say I am mindful. It is the weekend, long weekend. This is downtime for you. You do need to put your feet up and take care of yourself, relax a little. So I just, before I give you an opportunity just to kind of wrap up the show with some final gems and words of wisdom, I just want to say, okay, I'm so excited about this book. That's not what I'm saying. What I want to say, sis, is thank you so much for coming through. There've been so many things you've shared that have resonated with me, and just thank you for being open to sharing. I love, to hear where you're trying to take this journey of sipping Koko. Love what you're doing out there. That's why you're here. This is about highlighting your platform. Folks who are watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast platforms, follow Aynsley. She's got her personal account, but follow Sipping Koko. Check her out on Twitter or just on all the social media platforms. Check her out on TikTok, fam. You will not be disappointed. Trust me. Go onto her blog, read some of the things that she posted way back. It's, a lot of these issues and hot topics that she has written about. I mean, these things are still relevant. They're thought provoking. They might even open up your thinking in terms of some of the issues that you have. So thank you, sis, so much. I look forward to continuing to follow your journey. All the best. Continue to look after yourself, despite all the many hats you wear. Do take care out there in Tennessee. Which I'm trying. I really don't know much about Tennessee, but yeah.
You'll have to come out and visit. That's what you'll have to do. You'll have to
or you can come to Japan.
Yes. Listen, my sister wants to go to Singapore, and I know that's in the same area.
There we go.
So we'll just make it happen.
Yeah. So just before I hand it to you, all the best, sis. Much alofa, and just keep on keeping on. I see you. We don't have to say much to each other, but I see you out there. I see what you're doing. I see your advocacy and heart for community, and just keep on that journey. This is about, Samoan language, and, Famalosi, you got this.
Yeah. Thank you so much. No, I appreciate you having me. This has been so much fun, and being able to just connect with our people and talking like this, I absolutely enjoy it so much. So I really appreciate this time with you. So, and I appreciate you readers, connecting different readers and asking questions, because, reading is one of my favorite joys in life. And so I love that you have this platform to connect a lot of us readers, especially in the Pasifika community. Oh, book club. Is there a Pasifika book club?
Yeah, okay, so during COVID there's the virtual Pasifika book club, but I know with a lot of things returning to normal, I'm not sure if it's continuing. I had some of the founders on the show, and they were, I guess, trying to figure out how that might continue now that a lot of things have gone back to normal and offline again. So not sure,
Something to think about.
Something to think about.
Yeah. But thank you so much, and I hope we can do this again sometime soon.
I hope so too. I'll be waiting for that book to drop. Tell me, I'm gonna put it on blast on my account. Trust me, I will.
I gotta sit down and actually write it. I've never. It's been so long since I've done fiction work.
Do it, sis.
I don't know, and also just the spicy part of it, because I do, because it's gonna have it's just gonna be Pasifika. I mean, it's gonna be me.
Do it.
So I'm just we need some representation, because us girls got some moves. So
yes, I 200% agree with you. I am holding up for that, sis. I cannot wait. I don't care how long it takes you. Tell me, I'll put it on blast.
It will be there. It will be out
there. Yay!